Hello, everybody. My name is Fiston Dashimie, and the TV show is Importance Leadership. And today we're going to be speaking about anti-racism. And today I have a guest, and I would like my guest to introduce themselves, and we're going to engage in a conversation together. Thank you. Enjoy. Thank you for coming. Wouldn't you introduce yourself first? I mean, they already know you, but some people might not.
Thank you, Fisto, for having me. My name is Sharm, and I am the founder and director of Project S.T.O.R.Y, a youth organization in Concord. And Fisto, thank you for having me today to talk about this very important issue.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So I know you have a lot of things happening at the same time. You just had Black History Month event.
Correct.
And thank you for inviting me, by the way. That was
Yes.
successful, and I love that kids were happy with the conversation, and I think they learned a lot, and I hope we can keep doing that. But you have some things coming. You have anti-racism event scheduled, and excuse me, why don't you kind of talk to us a little bit about that so people know what it is?
Sure. So we have a two-part series event scheduled, and that's going to take place. The first part is going to take place at the end of March in a couple weeks, and we're doing a movie night. Mm-hmm. So we're showing the movie Stamped. Which is really exciting that we're playing this for the community. So our hope is to get this out to the community so that we can see it. And the community can see it. It is an invite-only event, unfortunately. We wanted to make it a public event, but because of copyright issues, we couldn't do that. So it is an invite-only event, but I do urge everyone to see that movie. The second part is a community event in which everyone is invited to attend. That's going to take place on April 10th in the evening from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Bank of New Hampshire stage, which is fantastic because they're hosting this anti-racism event for us. And it's open to everyone in our community. So we're going to be having speakers, and it's going to be a really educational, great event for people to not only learn about racism and what's going on in Concord, but also to hear some solutions and things that we can do to try to stop this.
Thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. I think people would want to see those things happen often. And I hope are you planning to do this every year?
Yeah, I think that this should be something that's done every year. One thing that we are really trying to do in Project S.T.O.R.Y is make these issues something that people talk about regularly. That's how we educate people. That's how we solve these problems. So one thing that we've tried to do, we started to do at the end of last year, is to have an event roughly once a month that covers an issue related to these topics like diversity, inclusion, racism. So last month we did have a Black History celebration, which was beautiful and fantastic, and thank you to you and everyone else who volunteered and participated. And then, like I said, we have the movie event coming at the end of this month, and then April 10th we have our anti-racism event. And we have more events coming throughout the year, but I'm not going to announce those yet. But we do have more planned because it's a very important issue, and our community needs to talk about it, and we need to fix the things that are going on.
So we're going to get into the conversation soon. But do you mind if I ask a question about, so what do you want the community to get out of this, from this event, the anti-racism event? What do you want the community in general to get out of it?
Okay, so two things I think are really important. The first goal is to educate the community that this is an issue in our community right here in Concord. We have racism. And the kids in my organization are literally dealing with racism every single day. And our community needs to know that this is going on. So that's the first piece, is we need to educate the community that there's a problem, because there are people in our community that don't know that this is going on or that don't think that this is a problem. It is, and it's a very real problem, especially for the kids that I work with where they're dealing with this every single day. So the education piece is number one. The second piece that I want people to leave with and understand is that there are things that we can do about this. There are things that we can do to make things safer and to make things more progressive and lead kids to places where they can be empowered and become successful. And right now, they're dealing with racism every single day. So I want people to know that we can actually try to solve this issue. And we're going to talk about things that you can do as an individual to help bring action, right, to this issue, but also things that you can do collectively and things you can do to organize people to take action against these issues. So those are kind of two big goals of the anti-racism event, and the series of events is, number one is to educate, and number two is to tell people that we need to act, and this is how we should, these are some ideas on what we can do.
Right. One more question about this.
Yeah.
So what's your goals? Like involvement. What kind of engagement do you want from the community? Like once we learn that, it's obvious that Concord there's racism and disconnection. So once people understand the areas that are mostly likely to deal with this, like
Yep.
who's dealing with racism, who's affected by these issues. What are you expecting? What's the goals? Like what do we do exactly as a community?
Sure. Well, I think Concord, and you feel free to jump in because I know you can speak to this a lot, but Concord has a lot of things that we can do as a community and that we need to look at. So I think the priority is to keep kids safe and make sure that they're safe. And that needs to be addressed. We need to invest our resources into safety and into diversity and to those resources to support youth and marginalized groups that need it. We need to call on leadership to make policies that are representational of everyone in our community, but also too that are going to help alleviate barriers for our community members. We also need to see leadership that is representing our community, racially. How about that? The majority of our leadership in Concord is white.
Right.
So that in itself is an issue that Concord needs to remedy. So we need to also look at things like businesses. We need to look at housing. We need to look at all of Concord. We need to look at schools. We need to have people and committees with an eye on these issues, caring about these issues, making sure that these are priorities and that people are safe. And that's what I think Concord needs to do, is we need to examine and identify these issues and identify that there's a problem. And then we need to put systems in place or change current systems so that they are transforming our community in a way that's helping our community instead of putting up barriers.
Right.
So you could even probably, explain even further how you see that.
I appreciate, people like you and other many community leaders who actually want to do something about these issues.
Right.
And you might ask question, who's responsible? Who is the responsible person to take on actions and teach people, do the work to end racism in our community, in Concord. It's really not just black people.
No.
Or BIPOC. It's not.
No.
So it's not the only affected people.
It's a community
It's
issue.
a community.
Right.
And sometimes people think about what is racism. What is racism? We don't recognize that. We don't think there's racism in the community. No, that's not true.
Correct.
There's racism 100%.
Yep.
And it's affecting a lot of people.
Yep.
It's affecting a lot of families.
Yep.
The fact that we have this connection, that majority of people that are poor and discriminated and they're segregated in one area, it's the sign that we haven't done a good job. And I would say that mostly white people are more dominant. They have power. Mm-hmm. And for someone to be able to engage and to be able to be a part of organizing and to end racism in our community, It's to recognize that the power they have, it's not really about making whatever they making something for themselves, or having to have a business for it's great to have a business, it's great to thrive, it's great to have that privilege, but it's very important that we recognize that it's going to take the community and and even privileged people who has resources, people who have power, that they have to put their effort to that, and they have to engage in the community and end racism, because it's their responsibility. That's how I see it, and that's what I was kind of asking you questions, because you're doing such a great job engaging in the community, helping these kids, making sure that they find a safe space. It's really empowering, and it encourages me to see that there's a possibility that we can do this. We can make this happen for young people, because it's really about the next generation. If we don't protect our young people, or if we don't teach young people what racism looks like in our community, if we don't teach young people what discrimination looks like in our community and in the school district, if it is that there is no education for that, then are we trying to help them? Are we preparing them for the future? Because once those kind of things happen, where kids don't recognize what racism looks like, they start thinking that they're not worth it. They start blaming themselves. They start thinking that they don't have power. They don't have any opportunity to succeed, to be successful just like anybody else. But when we recognize and teach people the areas that are mostly likely to affect marginalized communities, then we have a solution to that. And we got to teach the community as well as our young people. And I think you're doing such a great job doing that. But if we can move on, if you have any comments about that.
Well, I do. I just want to say you're hitting something so important, which is the education piece.
Right.
And you keep going back to that, but that's right. It's all starting with education. So we can't solve a problem unless we identify it first. And right now, there are people in our community that don't know there's a problem or don't understand that there's a problem. So right now, our first job is to educate. That is the primary focus right now, is to educate, yes, our young people, but also our entire community, because this is a community issue. So you're right, whose job is it to educate? Because right now, there is no education, at least that I'm aware of in Concord, for our kids or our community members about these issues, about diversity, about racism, about inclusion. There is no education available to everybody. So is there a class in the school for this? No, not right now. There should be, though. Are there classes and events out in the community run by the city or run by other things? We're doing it. We're starting to do it. But my point is that whose job, right? Whose job is it to educate? But we also need to get the community, like you said, everybody in the community needs to get involved and needs to be educated. Then, once we are all educated about these issues, then we can start to make change, and everybody can start to put in their ideas on what they think might work. And that's when we can really start to see changes in our community. But it all starts with education. So thank you for bringing just the emphasis on that, because that's really the base of all of that. That's where that starts.
Right.
So, yeah.
And then that brings me to this point. How do we exactly start? Well, let's start from not creating some sort of what is it called? I would say when someone is identified as a new American or refugee, where let's not call people. Let's not create terms. Let's start labels. Let's start from there. Get rid of labels.
Great.
Because it's so difficult for someone to be identified as a new American and be able to succeed in this community. I have personally, I personally experienced that. This stories, I don't think it's right time for that. I think we have more time to speak about these issues more often, and when we get more chances to talk about these issues. But I do know what it feels like, and I know what it can do to people when people are being called names, like being called the New American, refugee. I mean, it's of course they came to the United States as refugees, but if we think that this is a space, this is a country that we find peace, we find opportunities, why do I have to continue being or becoming whatever a refugee or a new American? Like, just an example, right? I have a citizenship,
That's so great.
and I've been here for enough, like 8 years, and I think I'm American. Just because I look different, and just because I'm black, there's no way around for someone to name who I am. They have to use the term New American to be able to identify someone like me, and that's not good. That's false. I think we need to name people by their names.
Yeah.
Stop calling me a black man or a New American, and I'm gonna stop calling you a white person or some sort of. And I don't call people by
Right.
their the color of their skins or
Of course not, right.
or where they come from,
Right.
or whether they're immigrants or New Americans. I think everybody have a right to live just like anybody else, and we shouldn't name people by how they look,
Yeah.
or identify people by how they look or where they come from. I think it's so complicated that if you serve kids that come from other countries, and I hear people say she serves New Americans, but the question is, and I hope this doesn't, the question is, but if you were helping a bunch of white kids, what would they say? Would they say that she serves a bunch of white kids?
Right.
It's complicated
Right,
because
right,
it's
right.
not valid. So,
You're right, but they wouldn't say that because of systemic racism. So again, we're back into the racism in Concord. We have to acknowledge and accept that we have racism in every system in our society right now, right? So you're right. She wouldn't say, or he wouldn't say, oh yeah, the white kids, right? She's helping the white kids. They wouldn't say that because that's already assumed in our society because of systemic racism and white supremacy, right? So
right.
those are issues that everybody needs to recognize and understand that those systems are in place and they're not okay and they can be changed, right?
Right.
But the first part is education.
Right.
Right.
So I think I'm not trying to point fingers, but I think I love everybody. I love white people. I love black people. I love brown people. I love any color. I think we're all human beings,
Yeah.
and I think we're all supposed to have same opportunities,
Right.
just like anybody else.
Right.
And what are we after? Like, what's the problem? The problem is the system that has been created by white people for white people, that black people has become, or BIPOC community has become victims of that system, and it's wrong. And I think now it's 2024. We gotta Concord. We need to step up.
Right.
we gotta do
Absolutely.
something
Yeah.
about that. We have to think through this, because if we still have these issues in our community where kids, young people, marginalized community are still dealing with these issues,
Right.
I don't think we have strong leadership.
Right.
And really, leadership is not about promises.
Right.
We hear a lot of promises from leaders.
Right.
I'm gonna create great school, I'm gonna give you tuition, I'm gonna give you money, I'm gonna,
Give you a DEI committee.
you know, and yeah, I'm gonna make sure that, I'm gonna give you better affordable housing. Those are promises.
Yeah.
Nobody wanna hear that. We don't wanna hear promises.
Right.
We wanna see leaders doing it.
Yeah.
It's okay
Action.
to promise, but we wanna see leaders doing it. And we have to identify the real issues we have in our community. And some people that are dealing with anti-racism, it's going to take them 100 times more work for them to step up, to be able to thrive and to be able to belong in our community. And this is why a lot of families that I know that have moved and others that are now having issues around our community, young people
Right.
that are dealing with these issues,
Mm-hmm.
I know well it's because of the environment. I know well that it is that they don't feel welcome
Right.
in this community.
Right.
I have personal stories
Mm-hmm.
that things that happened to me during my school time, like high school, college, in my community, working with my leaders. I know when I see white supremacy, and that we have to think about it. So speaking on school system, like, what are you gonna say, like, from what you hear? Like, I know you communicate with kids, you talk to kids, and they have a lot of stories and issues happening.
Mm-hmm.
What is, like, what can you talk to us about in terms of anti-racism?
So I feel like as the community in general, right, we need to really embrace this. I feel like right now maybe our leadership, you talked about leadership, and it's not just leadership in school, it's leadership everywhere, in our whole city. And I feel like our leadership really needs to take this issue on and understand that it's an issue and that it's a serious issue, and we need to stop not hiding it, but sugarcoating it, I guess, and pretending that everything's fine and great, and we're doing all these great things, and in my point of view, there's more that can be done. Let's just look at the city, for instance, just a quick example. The city has been promising a DEI committee to help work out these issues in the city that are all over these city systems, but the committee is still not formed, right? So I just feel like there needs to be an urgent call for action, because we have community members that are not safe, that don't feel safe. And even the last, or one of the last city meetings that we were at, I'm not sure you were safe. And that's unfortunate. And you should always be safe in a city meeting. Definitely. You should always have a safe place there. And at that meeting, you were not. I didn't feel that you were safe. You were being yelled at, right? You were being interrupted. There were people at that meeting that were saying racial stereotypes about youth. And it was really an environment where I was concerned for your safety. And do you want to speak to that at all? I mean, I know that might be sensitive and maybe not something, but
yeah,
I think safety
issue
is it's very important.
Yeah, and I thought about it many times. I was still dealing with it. I thought that it was traumatizing.
Yeah.
I never felt scared in Concord ever before until that meeting happened. And I think for that alone, that topic, I'm thinking, I've been thinking about it. Maybe next time, it should be the topic to our next interview.
Mm.
I think we need to talk about safety.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing promise from what I've already seen, the priorities for the city in terms of safety. I'm not seeing a promise that there's anything that's going to be done for our leaders, safety department, to get involved in making our city more safe for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about everybody, we mean even those people that don't believe. They don't need to believe. I think it's more like just how the system functions. That we don't have a supportive system that would protect marginalized communities.
Mm.
And I think we need to talk about that. So I'm not seeing that structure in our city, and I think we should talk about it next.
Yeah.
But really, it all comes down to what the city is putting in place.
Right.
If we can't, now I'm talking about DIJB committee. If we can't be able to form this DIJB committee that has become a project for years,
Mm-hmm.
it's a committee.
Right.
If we can't have right people on the table, then where are we going?
Right.
These are things we not only have to talk about, but how
Yeah.
we have to engage and advocate for. Because if we don't have a leadership that is trying to create safety, better environment for all the communities,
Right.
then why are we electing leaders who are not going to step up and do the necessaries, what is necessary to make sure that everybody feels welcome? So I see this is becoming as something that it's becoming a big issue,
It
and
is.
it's just quiet, and it's not okay.
It's not okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
And safety is huge. And when you talk about safety too, it's kids need safe spaces. It's
Mhm.
not just at school, right?
Right.
So if kids are safe at school, that's one thing, but then they come home or then they're out in the community. Kids need safe spaces to go. So let's take the Heights, for instance. A great safe space across from many of the kids and families that I work with is the community center.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the kids, they like to play basketball. Unfortunately, because of the barriers, rules, and policies that are set in place at the community center, we have so many kids that can't even get in there.
Right.
They can't even get in the building.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 6 months out of the year when they can't even play basketball, right? But they have this gorgeous building that has all these rooms and a gym. It would be a lovely safe space, but there's policies and rules and all these other things that are put in place so that the kids and families that I work with actually can't access that. They actually can't access those safe spaces. Then those aren't safe spaces for them anymore.
Right.
So the youth that I work with in particular, that is a huge issue, is there is a lack of safe spaces for them.
Right.
And that's not okay.
Save that for our
We
next,
will. This is gonna be our
next
next
conversation. I think
conversation.
safety is a big issue that
Yeah.
we have to get enough time and
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah.
But really, like when going back to our topic, like anti-racism, I think this is just the beginning of this, because
Yeah.
there's a lot to this that we can speak about. We have to
course.
point out these stories, things that are happening in our
Right.
community day to day,
Right.
because we do
Right.
see those kind of things.
Exactly.
We have to educate people.
Right.
So unless our city council and the community in general put more effort in making this happen, be able to have like a DIJB committee in our schools,
Yeah.
a strong system,
Yeah.
people that are dedicated to make that happen in our city and our school district,
Yeah.
I don't see changes if we don't have right people on the table.
Right.
So I think we have to not only talk about this, but we gotta encourage and I'm talking about people who are watching, everybody, we got engaged in make sure that our city government, our city councilors and the community leaders and everybody engaged in making changes that we need to make. We need to see change happen in Concord.
Yeah.
That's one way of promoting diversity in our community.
Absolutely.
That's one way of making sure that we have black-owned business in our community.
Yeah.
That's one way of recognizing the real needs for this community, for the marginalized communities, for black people, for new Americans, okay? That's one way of recognizing the real needs, because when we talk about the needs for the new Americans, okay, let me use the term to make sure people understand, but I'm not okay with that, with the term. I just want to make sure that we understand that it's not about creating a space for them to play games and do all that. It's important for people to have a space where they can use to play games and stuff like that. But it's also important to understand that we need to advance. We need to create businesses. We need to create trainings. They need to be a part of leadership. They need to be on the table. They need to get better education. They need to understand the system. And that's going to take more than just having a space to play multicultural rooms and stuff. Like, I do agree with the idea. I love that. Anybody who
but it's bigger than that. It's bigger than just that. You're absolutely, of course.
Okay, so your mic fell off.
But can you still hear me though?
Sorry, what?
Can you still hear me though?
Not that last part.
Oh God, what was the last part?
I don't know.
I can hear you barely.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, if you just want to try to repeat what you were going to say.
Oh, okay. Where is that?
I don't know.
I was gonna say, I was saying that the only way for us to recognizing the real needs for the community, for new Americans, okay, is to understand that it's not just small specific things that they get tutors. It's important to learn English, but it's beyond that, because we do want to create business in our city. For black-owned business, and we do have to create more resources and make sure that those resources are accessible by everybody. So that takes education, that takes a lot of effort, and that's where we have to be. And we have to allow right people on the table to make those decisions. We have to make sure that the city council is occupied by everybody, by a diverse group of people that are dedicated to make changes, that are dedicated to listen, not taking things personal and being offended by nothing. I'm okay with saying that because I think those are real facts.
They are.
I'm not pointing fingers to anybody. I think those are real stories. Those are real conversations we need to have. We need to have in our community to be able to make sure that not only young people learn about the reality, but also the community can understand and engage in making sure that we have safe space for young people to thrive. And that's where my organizing stands. So I really, again, appreciate you, appreciate your work, but if you have any final comments.
Yeah, I think you touched on that important fact at the end, like it's not just a black issue, right? This is a community issue. This is an issue for every single person in Concord to care about and to wrap their arms around and to really start working on a solution for. And this is something that affects everyone and will affect everyone, and it will affect our future. And it's really important that we work now. I think we're at a place and a time that we can make significant changes. We have young people that are becoming increasingly educated and aware of these issues as well as active. And I feel like we, especially in Concord, we have the resources to work on these issues. We just need to educate people to make sure that these resources go where they need to go, and we invest in what we need to invest in, which is the future for our community, which is making sure that everyone gets what they need and that there's no racism in Concord. Because you said too, you know, it's actually something that we have in every area, right now in Concord, right? You mentioned housing, you mentioned school, you mentioned city. It's actually in every area. So it's really something that Concord needs to really just take very seriously, and this is very important and it's urgent. And I feel like if we can collectively work together, we can really bring Concord to a place where we can be proud of, you know, where we don't have these issues. But it's a community issue. It's not just something that, you know, certain people in the community are going to fight for, educate, or just black people. No, everyone in the community is affected by this issue. So
Right.
everyone
Right.
should care about it.
Should care about this.
Right.
It's affecting everybody. I
It's
mean,
everyone.
we have to educate people to understand what that exactly means.
Right.
Because
You're right.
if it is affecting me as a citizen of this community,
Yep.
then it's affecting everybody.
Right. It's
Because
affecting me.
yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And I do appreciate you for coming.
I appreciate you. Thank
you.
so much.
It's a
for-
pleasure speaking to you, and I think you're gonna make a lot of changes for our young people.
Thank you. And
That's
thank
all.
you for being so brave and just speaking about these issues, and because that takes courage. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Our next interview is going to be about safety, and we hope that you can keep supporting us, share our videos, subscribe to our YouTube channels, and make sure that you can engage and make differences in our community. We appreciate you all. Thank you, and have a wonderful time.